Hi everyone, this is Chris Harrow with Everyday VBA, and in this video we're going to be going over variable and variable types. And hopefully by the end of this you have a better understanding of what a variable is and how it can be used within Visual Basic and in Excel macros. So first thing first, what is a variable? Well, if you think of variable like a bucket or something to hold a set of data, a number, if it's like an integer or a double, those are two numerical variable types. Or if you have to put a sentence would be a string, that would be a text variable type. Or if you had a date, that would be a, lo and behold, that's a date variable type. If you had a true and false, that would be a Boolean data type. And if you didn't know, you could actually use variant, and Excel will do its best to figure out what data type that is. So the first thing that I want you to do is I've got some code here that I've already written. I'm going to include this in the comments and also or on this page. First thing we need to do is we need to add the locals window. Now I already have it open, it's right here. So if you just go to view, click on view, and you're going to go to locals window, and that will actually open up that window. Now the locals window is great because it will show you all of the existing variables that you have that you're currently are in process or that have been initialized. So I'm going to click inside this macro and I'm going to hit F8. Now I built this macro not so that you could just run it by F5 and it would process the whole thing, but I did this macro so that we could go step by step and use F8 to go line by line. And I've actually put some errors in here, but it's going to be really good to show you how these variable types work. So F8, you'll notice it starts on the first line, F8 again, and it processes to the next line. First variable type we want to talk about is an integer. Now, how do you declare your variables? Now, I've actually skipped, the code actually skipped that variable, this little line right here, this declaration. Now, how you declare a variable is it's always the same in Visual Basic and VBA. It's dim, whatever your variable name is. Now I've just set these as a single character, or I, but this could be a name with one caveat. Now there cannot be a space. There can be an underscore, but there cannot be a space. And then it's followed by as, and then whatever the data type is. Now I have in here the most common data types. Now you may, you're pretty much not going to use any other data type. But let me just show you how this works if you're using Intellisense. I'm going to call this one new var. So I type in new var, I'm going to type in as, and you'll notice it gives me a bunch of, this Intellisense gives me a bunch of options. And you'll notice all the variable types look the same. So Boolean, it's going to have that same little, looks like a mini sheet on the left hand side. Now byte is another one. Now I've been coding for 15 plus years, well actually close to 20. I have never used the byte type. I don't expect you to use the byte type either. And if you go through, you can actually see all of the data types in here as well. So I just wanted to show you that so that you knew that Intellisense is incredibly helpful here. Now let's get back to our variable types. We've got I as an integer, and now you'll notice down here in my locals window all of these variables showed up, and they all showed up because I declared them with the dim variable as whatever variable type. So they all show up in your locals window, and it actually gives you what the value currently is. Now we have not assigned a value to I or any of our variables at this point, so they're all going to be the same. So I'm going to hit F8. Now an integer is a whole number, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it goes up to some absurd number. It also goes into the negative, but there are no decimals. So I just wanted to show you this. So I'm going to try to assign I equal to 149.5. I'm going to hit F8, and you'll notice that it stays right at 150. Because an integer has to be a whole number. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to assign text. Now when you assign text to a variable, you always put it in quotes. I'm going to hit F8 and it's going to yell at me. Oh my gosh, I've got a runtime error 13, a type mismatch. Well, why is that a problem? Because this is a numeric variable type and I'm trying to send it text, and it says I can't do that. So I just wanted to show you that because that's an error, and that's actually a common data type. And you'll notice that I did not get reassigned. It didn't get a new value. I'm going to hit F8, and this is going to take my value of I and put it in D10. which is going to write over my text here. So I'm going to actually just move this over. Okay, I'm going to move that over because I don't want to overwrite it. You'll notice that it's got 150. Now D is a double, so I've named my variable. My variable is D. Double is allows for decimal precision, and really all that means is it's a number with a decimal attached. So if I hit F8 again, notice that that puts in that long decimal number, but it's also going to store whole numbers. And I'm going to just repurpose this because the variable types, once they're declared, they don't really care what they are, and they can be repurposed. And so I'm repurposing every one of these. Now you'll notice it changes right to 150, and I'm going to hit this. Now notice I have a different range here. Instead of using range, I'm actually using cells, and this is going to use cell 11, so I'm going to go down 11 rows, and I'm going to go over 4, and that would actually be the same as if I put in range D11. So let's hit F8, and it's going to assign that 150. Now here we've got this right here. I'm dimming S as a string. So a string will take text, and a string will also take numerics, and I'll show you how that works. So you'll notice that this is text. It comes in down here, and if I highlight over that, it says this is text. Okay, now I'm going to repurpose this, and I'm going to throw in a number. Now you'll actually see how it's different. So now S is equal to 150, but not 150 to the number, 150 the text. And you'll notice that it has quotes around that. And in most codes, if it's a text, it's going to have a quotation around it. Now you'll notice right here, I'm going to take that 150 because that's what I have, and I'm going to pass it in as 112. I hit F8. Okay, so let's look at the date type. I'm just scrolling down here. Now date is pretty simple. Now notice it defaults to basically 0, which is 12 a.m. And you'll also notice it has pound signs. That's how you know it's a date. Now I put that in, it changes that date, and that is a date type. So if we have right here, I'm going to repurpose that because I want to put in today's date. Now date in VBA is a constant, which means that it's always going to be today's date. It is exactly the same. It is equivalent to the Excel function of equals today, parentheses, end parentheses. So I'm going to hit F8 here. You'll notice that that changed to the date. Lo and behold, today is 1/17 of 2016, and we're actually going to put this in a message box. So we're going to take this message box, and the message box is going to be today is, and then I'm going to add or use the ampersand, which basically puts the string together with the variable, and I've got a nice little message box. Now we're moving to Boolean. Now Boolean's pretty simple. It sounds pretty scary and hairy, but really all it is it true or is it false? So you'll notice TF equals true, so it equals true. So down here in our locals window, it equals true. Now it equals false. Now one of the interesting things about Boolean and all computer programming is it all comes down to ones and zeros. So you can actually use ones and zeros. So 1 is true and 0 is false. And I'm going to go ahead and put that into D14. I don't know why I have that at D14. I'm actually going to put that in D16. That's because I copied it. And you'll see that that comes in as false because that's what we passed it in. Now variant, that's the default. Variant is the default VBA data type. So if you don't assign something, VBA will actually, the compiler will actually say, I think this is a number, I think it's text, I think it's date, I think it's Boolean, and I just want to show you how that works here. So if I come back over here into my VBA window, hit F8, you'll notice that I've got 150. No quotes, that means it's storing it as a number. Now I just repurpose that, so V equals text, so now it's equal to text, and now I'm going to send it over as a date. Now it's a date, and it does all of that in date format. So we're going to go ahead and put this into D17. Just going to make a quick change there, and you'll notice that it puts in the date. So the last thing I want to just talk about is best practices. Now, the best practices when it comes to variable types is that you would just declare all of them at the top of your code. It gets very difficult when you're going in, especially when you do a long set of code, if you have your variables and you're declaring them all over the place and you don't keep them consistent and at the top, it can get very confusing. So the best thing to do is to declare all those at the top, then set them, and then move on. The other thing that's good is if you are declaring them, you'll notice I have a bunch of single quotes and how this is all green. That's basically just comment it out. It's another way to help you code better, and that is to put comments. So if you did D as double, you could put a comment and say, hey, I'm going to be using this for this specific reason, or in this loop, or in this area, or this is for this sheet, and it just makes life significantly easier when you're debugging. Well, this is a quick overview of understanding the variable types in VBA. Hope you enjoyed.